Today is just a perfect day out in the garden, mid-August here in the Mid-Hudson Valley, and I wanted to go outside and kind of talk about some of the ways that I've maximized space here in the garden. This garden really did start off very small, and every year we've added a little bit more, and every year I tell myself I'm not going to make it any bigger. I'm not really sure if that's true. I think I've just stopped saying that now. One of the ways that you can maximize space, like if you wish you had a bigger garden, is to grow things upwards. Over here, made like an A-frame with 2 cattle panels, and usually in this spot I have beans, which are climbing ones and they want to grow upward, or sometimes I'll have tomatoes that don't naturally want to climb. They will if you train it though. I've had this A-frame up for probably about 5 or so years, maybe even a little bit longer, and it's held up really well over time, and it's the cheapest version I could find. The cattle panels, they were kind of expensive, like maybe $20 a piece, maybe, I guess less than that because it was a while ago. So that's an investment. I had some of these T-posts around, and I just used some zip ties, and what I did is I pounded the T-posts down into the ground, and then I just zip tied the cattle panel to it, and then I had the meat at the top, and they're also zip tied somewhere up there. And then I have another one on the other side, and you could use whatever you have, like if you have rebar. I just happen to have T-posts, and that's how I used it. So that's one way to maximize gardening space. Over here I have some green stalks, and I got those probably like 3 years ago when they had a sale, and these have been great, especially for different types of herbs. Sometimes I'll grow lettuce greens in it, and I really like them for that. And that's been another great way to kind of grow upward. And it has, I think, like 30 pockets, so you could really grow a lot in just a square foot of space. Just feel like we need to look at that very busy pollen-laden bumblebee over here. So cool. All right, next to them, I have this type of an arch trellising idea. Again, for beans, because not all things can be trellised well. Beans and peas and cucumbers, they want to climb naturally, so they're pretty great for trellising. What I did with them is I had this thin piece of rebar. I have it on both sides, and I got a plastic pipe that is just wide enough to fit over it. It kept slipping, so we taped it. But this is an arch that you can walk underneath. Really like this solution. I've tried other things here too. If they're too high up, if you have something that you're meant to harvest, they're really hard to get. Like you can't reach them without a ladder. So this is a good height for growing something that you want to harvest. A few years ago, I grew morning glories, like those ones over there, but up over here, they were out of control. They actually took down the structure, not this type, but 2 times. So they just can't be here. They're too vigorous. Over here is another cheap type of trellising idea. When I first started gardening, I would use tomato cages because that's what I thought you're supposed to use. And many times as tomatoes grow, they outgrow the cage. Like they'll grow over it and they're too big. Like this right here is a tomatillo, and this was a volunteer, so it started off even a little bit late. And you can see how this is a 2-tier or 2 tomato tier, and it's already almost outgrowing it. So imagine if it was just like a single tomato here. So I just have one poking in the ground the way you would normally see it, and then I zip tied another one on top of it, and it's pretty sturdy. And I use this for, again, not tomatoes. I guess you could put a tomato in a double one, but this time I just use them for tomatillos. And I use them over here for the cucumbers. Okay, in here we have cucumbers, and this is the first time I ever grew them this way. And the reason why we had to grow them this way is because we have a cucumber beetle problem. And last year, I don't think we got a single cucumber, which was so, so sad. So today's the day I'm going to take off the netting because I think we're in the clear. And I'll show you the trellising thing too. So we've had cucumber beetles for the past few years, and they've just been getting worse and worse. And this year, I just wasn't even going to grow any beetle or any cucumbers in hopes of not growing any beetles. But then I just got so sad because we didn't have any cucumbers, and I figured I would try this solution. I found this super big netting which covers these trellises, and it's the same as the tomatillo trellis, two tomato cages that are zip tied together, and the tops over here are like bent in so they don't poke through that. This plant looks really healthy. I'm gonna take off the other ones as well. And the plants themselves look really healthy. I mean, this one looks very thirsty, but besides that, there's no damage because there's no pests that can get there. The problem is there's no pollinators that can get there either, and that's why I took that off, and we'll let the bees and whatnot have at it and see what we can make over here. I was actually really tempted to just leave the covering on there and hope that maybe the wind would help pollinate some of the fruits. You can see over here, there's a little cucumber. I don't know if it was actually pollinated though. But they're starting to produce some of the female flowers. So this would have been a female flower, this one a female flower, and then the male flowers over here, they just have like no immature fruit shape over here. It's just a stem. And the raspberries are ready, guys. I'm so excited. This is the second flush of raspberries for the year, and they'll keep producing pretty much up until frost, which is fantastic. Yeah. Okay, for another, I guess this is considered trellising, I'm going to show you the blackberries. Okay. Over here, there's 3 large blackberry canes. And blackberries can really get out of control, and we didn't want that to happen. So what we did is put in a T-post in the ground, took one major cane and just kept trimming it. These are new growth recently, but up until like a month ago, we just kept it really trimmed on the bottom, and then we let the top section become really full. We just didn't want it to start to grow over to our neighbor's yard or the rows of Sharons over here. We had it covered with this netting to keep the birds away and let the fruits mature. This was a perfect amount of fruit for us. We've had plenty of it. Really happy with this version. So I guess that's trellising because we just didn't let it like go all over the place, but we used the T-posts there and over here. And I think we ran out, so we just kind of let this one lean on the other two. And that was great. And another cheap trellising idea. Over here is another type of trellising that we used. So we have just some metal poles, could be like pipe, like some of these are, or T-posts if you have them. And then we just took this like gauged wire fence and we rolled it out along here. This used to be where the cucumbers would grow, and it was perfect for that if it wasn't for the cucumber beetles. but we just used up like scrap fencing that we had. And this was another thing that I do is I usually will take a um, a post of some sort and I'll put it next to another one over here, and then I'll weave some twine in between so it'll keep the tomatoes growing up, kind of like a Florida weave idea. And as they keep growing, I can add more, and I'm really only limited to the height of the posts that I use. Over here is another cattle panel. Instead of growing this one or having it the long way up, I just used it flat on the ground. These are for some determinate tomatoes, which are, I don't know, kind of looking a little sad. Over here, to help these peppers, I have some pieces of rebar put into the ground and just use the twine to help kind of just keep them off the ground. Over here are the grapes, and we have T-posts on either side, over here and over here. And this is something from like a Home Depot in the construction area. I don't know what its actual purpose is. It might be for like cement laying or something, but I got those to span across because they're strong enough where they can hold up a heavy vine full of fruit. And we have more T-posts with that type of like meshed wire fencing. This one is off the ground. That way these indeterminate tomatoes can keep growing, and you can see they've already grown over the top. So that's like another way to get a little extra height out of something. And then I have over here this little bonus area where there's some posts I put in the ground, and I wove in some of the twine in there, and it's holding up this extra tomato plant that I just need to put somewhere. I don't know if this is trellising, and I also don't know if it's working exactly, but I took some bendable branches that I had and I wove them together to kind of create a dome, and then I had put flowers in here to kind of help them just have a little extra support so they didn't fall over if it was windy. But like certain flowers don't really need that much support. Other ones, they definitely do. This is the type of zip tie that I use for securing things together. So typically when I'm doing vertical gardening, something goes into the ground, and then I have like a panel or something that I try to attach it to for the plant to grow up. They're great, they're super easy to use. We call them zip ties here. I don't know what they're called in other places. They're easy, they're surprisingly strong, but the only issue is mostly they're just considered single use. So found that you can use a tool like this, like an awl, and if you push the lever down, there's like the lever that's holding it together in there, and you push it down, you can release it, and there it is. You could reuse it again, which is pretty great. I practiced on this one a few times so I could make sure you could see it. So I did make it a little bit loose. You can't use it infinitely, but you can definitely reuse it if you have to like reposition it, or if you just want to use it again the following year. I found that I'm a pretty cheap gardener and I don't want to spend a ton of money on extra things for the garden. So I try my best to use up what's available. And one of the ways I can save money is through just using things that I, save and I put to the side, and I could usually find some type of idea about how to use them. That's one way you can like cut down the cost of a garden. I've also found there's like other ways I've tried to be a cheap gardener, which wasn't really wise. So, for example, I wouldn't really invest that much in the soil. Soil is really important, and investing in stuff like that really makes a big difference. So, if you can save a little bit here and there with the trellising, I think that's really helpful. Over here, I don't even know how I got these. They're like 10-foot pieces of rebar. I'm like, what are you supposed to do with that? I know it has an actual purpose. I had it. I tried a few different versions over the years of what to do with it. It's okay. But these morning glories, I just took 2 of those large pieces of rebar and I put them in through here. And I have them kind of crisscrossing, one going that way, one going that way. And then I stuck it into the ground down there. So far, so good. These morning glories took down a lot of trellises in the past. So the fact that it's still up and it looks sturdy, I'm happy with that solution for now. And I think just one more example of cheap, well, available trellising, let's call it that. These over here are cedar posts. And while that might be cheap, it's not simple and it's backbreaking work. But my dad put these posts in a few years ago, and he dug a hole in the bottom, sunk it in for probably 2, 3, 4 feet, and then we had the cold hardy kiwi climbing up here. I just want to point out the singular cold hardy kiwi. Where are you? There you are, little precious. We've been having some challenges with it, but I think we figured it out. And this grew up here. It's a very vigorous plant. Like you could see how it's just growing down. I need to give it another haircut. But we have the 4 posts, one here, here, and over here. And as the plant kept growing down, as it got more mature, we put this kind of extra piece of fencing we had, and it's going from one side here all the way over here. You can do that too with probably a bunch of different things. We always save our scrap fencing just to see what we could use it for later on. Haven't been disappointed yet. It's mid-August here, and that means we probably have 4, maybe 5 weeks left until our first frost, which is kind of sad. So I'm going to say goodbye to the garden for now. I'll be back out later. Give this guy a haircut. Well, if you're growing something, I hope it's going well wherever you are. All right. Take care. Bye-bye from New York.